Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I'll get right to it. This is 30 minutes. I'm going to try to go through this slideshow rather quickly. And the title of this is, What If Silver Were Treated Like Gold? And again, thank you, Rita and The Money Show, for inviting me to this virtual conference. Who knows? This may be, not only is it present day, it may be the future for some time. I don't know. I've certainly spent my fair amount of time in airplanes going show to show, and it's always fun to see people face to face, but at least we have the technology to be together in this format. So first of all, I want to give the idea of common sayings about gold. And these are buried deep in the conscious and also the subconscious. So there's things about gold that we don't really verbalize in everyday language, but we do kind of carry with us at all times, at least in the Western cultures. So one of the first ones up, and this one isn't commonly known, but I started with my friend Norm Franz, who I had speak at the Silver Summit many, many years ago, who wrote Gold, Money and Wealth in the New Millennium. Took this quote that gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, barter is the money of peasants, but debt is the money of slaves. And most people that are viewing this this lecture, this talk, are pretty familiar with the fact that the entire global money system is a debt-based monetary system. So I just want to start with that. But then almost everything we talk about when we want to talk about the best, it's the gold standard. It's the best car. It sets the gold standard for automobiles. It sets the gold standard for computers. It sets the gold standard for men's fashion. It sets the gold standard in the newspaper industry. So we're always equating the gold standard with something that can't be any higher than. It's the ultimate. And there's that connotation that we carry either, as I said, consciously or subconsciously. So gold's got this very positive connotation that gold is great, gold is good, the gold standard is the best. And then, of course, the golden rule, how could we forget that? It's not the silver rule, it's not God's #1 rule, it's not the best natural law, it's the golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And then, of course, all that glitters is gold. That one's a subtle one. It's just, again, a reference to, you know, something shiny, glittery, must be kind of draws your attention, and it's gold. And then this one's interesting. This is from Gerald Loeb. I'm not going to say that I totally agree with it, but I found it during this little bit of research I did for this lecture. This is about the 4th time I've done it, and I have changed it slightly in every presentation. But the desire for gold is the most universally and deeply rooted commercial instinct of the human race. Now, I don't know if that's really true or not, but I thought it was interesting when I found it, so I wanted to use it. And this could be more emphasized maybe when we were on a gold standard, which was most of recorded human history. I mean, from the early ancient Egyptian period of about 2500 BC or so to present day, gold and silver have been the monetary standards on and off, but most of the time that's what they were. So you can take that one or leave it. Gold is money. Everything else is credit. J.P. Morgan, before the founding of the Federal Reserve. Now, I want to contrast it with silver. So I think I've made my point that we're here looking at gold is good. There's nothing better than the gold standard. Gold standard is the standard. And all these positive things about gold in our vernacular. Now, if we go to silver, you see a book published like The Complete Guide to U.S. Junk Silver Coins. Now, I don't have to be a semanticist to be able to explain to any of you that it's obvious that at just sight that on its own merit, junk is something you usually throw away, or it's something that you're going to get to. You got your junk car in the backyard that you're going to fix, and it'll be your son's first car because it's kind of a piece of junk, but you might be able to make it. So connotation there obviously is negative. It's a negative connotation that we've got junk silver. And it's common. I mean, I've used the term myself many times. It just has that connotation. You've got the gold standard, you've got junk silver. And then weight, you don't want to scrap your silver just yet. So you've got junk silver and you've got scrap silver. Now you do have scrap gold. So I'm trying to be fair and objective here, but you don't hear about scrap gold very often. You might hear recycled, you might hear melted jewelry, but you could hear scrap gold. And of course you hear scrap silver. And then the melt, you melt down, something and recycle it. So you've got silver melt. And you also have gold melt. The really most positive one I found, and there may be others that I've missed, that if you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, obviously that implies you were born with wealth, you had rich parents, rich lineage, or something along those lines. And then another positive one, which is kind of mixed. It's every cloud, which is sort of a negative connotation, has a silver lining. So something that's maybe cloudy, not clear, a little bit hazy, needs some further enlightenment. And of course, it has a silver lining. So I think I made my point that most of the connotations surrounding the word gold are far more positive than most connotations around the word silver. And before I go further, I just have to put in my $1 worth of commitment to the fact that the country was founded on a silver standard. And a dollar is a weight of silver. It is not a piece of paper printed with the president's picture on it. And this is a silver certificate, which is not money, but it is a certificate that at one time was exchangeable for money. And you could take that to any bank at the time that it was valid, and you could exchange it for a dollar, which is roughly 3/4 of an ounce. It's 361.25 or 371, I think it is, 0.25 grains of 999 fine silver, roughly 3/4 of an ounce. And of course, the Treasury doesn't even know what the weight of a dollar is anymore, because the new Silver Eagles is actually 1 ounce and it says dollar on it, which is incorrect as far as the dollar weight is concerned, because in the Coinage Act of 1792, it expressly explains exactly what a dollar weight is. So you're getting more silver for your money when it says dollar on the current 1986 onward Silver Eagle. So silver certificate certifies there is on deposit with the Treasury of the United States of America, $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. So I want you to think about this in your conscious or subconscious. What if we were still on a silver standard and that dollar represented 3/4 of an ounce of silver, or a dollar's weight of silver? How many of those would be in circulation and how many would be able to be exchanged like they were from 1968 backward? You could actually, even though we went off silver in the coinage in 1965, you had through 1968 to be able to take a silver certificate into the Treasury and exchange it. And of course, coming back to reality, and none of the things I've said are not real, but we're talking about, money, which is really an exchange for labor. So as Adam Smith so eloquently said, labor was the first price, the original purchase, money that was paid for all things. It was not by gold or by silver, but by labor, that all wealth of the world originally purchased. So I think we all know that, but I wanted to throw it in there as a reminder, because there's lots of ways to perform a task, barter, or you could exchange other things, whatever. So it's not all about just having to have gold and silver as money, but the fact that gold and silver as money have shown more validity by the common vote, by people at large, than anything else. But it's always in regards to labor. So banks, they are been at this for a while, and they favorite gold over silver. So this is a movie that you can get on the internet for free. It's called The Secret of Oz. And I don't know if this presentation will be kept in the archives at the Money Show or not. It's pretty easy to find. All you have to do is Google or go to YouTube and type in The Secret of Oz, and you'll be able to watch this movie. I think I've watched it 3 or 4 times. It's a very interesting movie, and it talks about a lot of things, but primarily what it indicates in this movie was that the Wizard of Oz was a metaphor for the Eastern establishment taking on a gold-only standard and dissing silver. So the yellow brick road was the gold road, only gold to Oz, meaning an ounce. So it was gold ounces going to the Emerald City, which was green, and it leads basically to nowhere. And really where it leads is a monometallic standard. So the bankers didn't want to have a bimetallic standard. They wanted gold only standard. The old adage, he who owns the gold makes the rules. And that has held sway for many, many decades. But when a gold standard is replaced, when a gold silver standard is placed with a gold only standard, it's false to represent the new system as honest. Despite all the appearances to the contrary, a gold standard is really a fiat money regime. And the reason that's true, and you can think about it and you can argue with me, but when you have gold only and it can only be measured in paper, that's a circular argument. So gold is worth 1,700 US dollars, what we call dollars, currency today. And if we have a lot of inflation, go to 2,500 pieces of paper per gold. But there's no way, there's no check and balance on gold in terms of silver. It's simply gold or fiat, gold or fiat. So you're exchanging gold for gold. How many ounces of gold will you get for this much paper? This many. The paper changes or the paper devalues, as we all know. So basically, there's no check and balance when you just have a gold only system. And the populists and American farmers grasped this truth. They insisted on a restoration of silver as money alongside gold. They weren't against gold. They just knew that silver had to be represented in a bimetallic system in order to basically keep a check and balance. And I don't know if they thought through that carefully or not, but they knew that taking silver out of their pockets and having gold only would really give the bankers the upper hand, which it did, and pretty much unravel a lot of the hard labor that had taken place in the West by the sweat of their brows to do what they did in the early days of building the Western frontier in early Americana. The free minting of silver dollars was omitted from the Specie Redemption Act of 1873, referred to as the crime of 1873. Before that, you could actually take raw silver into the mint and get it pressed into coins. And of course, the government would keep part of that silver in payment, and they should. They paid, the labor, they had the press, they had the mint, they did it for you, so they need to get paid for that service. The farmers didn't wait for anyone to explain it to them. They knew fraud when they saw one. England's bimetallic standard was replaced by gold only, and this allowed England to go to the world reserve status on par with gold itself. So this idea that he who owns the gold makes the rules is, I would say, true, but it also gives an advantage. A lot of this is in a paper done by a gentleman that's called Gold Standard Equals Fiat in Disguise. And I don't have time to go into that, but you can probably Google that and find the article, Gold Standard with an equal sign, Fiat in Disguise. So what are the most powerful facts about the gold-silver ratio? And here they are. Now, on the screen, maybe you can see it easier than when I'm doing this lecture in front of a live audience. But if you go back to 3200 BC, in ancient Egypt, what you find is it took, and I think before I start, everyone knows the gold-silver ratio. It's the amount of silver ounces that are required to buy an ounce of gold, what the exchange rate is. So a ratio of 100 to 1 means 100 silver ounces are required to buy 1 ounce of gold. So in early Egypt, 2.5 ounces of silver bought an ounce of gold. Going up to the time of Plato, 12 ounces of silver bought an ounce of gold. Going to mid-Rome, 10 ounces bought an ounce of gold, 10 ounces of silver. Going into the 1800s, 15 ounces, 15.3, 15.5 bought an ounce of gold. And then I'm not going to read them all. You get the idea. So here we are, and this is going back into the 1300s. So we're going back several hundred years. And you see that the gold-silver ratio never got above 20 from ancient Egypt all the way up to 1873 when silver was demonetized. And at that time, we've got these two spikes that went to 100 a couple times. And now we've broken all records of 5,000 years of recorded history where the silver gold ratio hit roughly 125 just about a month and a half ago. Unprecedented. Never have you ever in all of recorded history as we know it had to pay 125 ounces of silver to purchase 1 ounce of gold. Now, this is an interesting chart to try to put some reality back into the idea of what is silver's value the most cherished, and it's when it is money. And when silver is money, again, it kind of matches that chart I just showed, where we're showing from about the 13th century up to the time that Warren Buffett made his purchase of silver, what the inflation-adjusted value of silver is in dollar terms. So we've taken the inflation lie out of the equation, we've made a constant. So we've adjusted for inflation. So if you go back to the beginning of this chart in the upper left-hand side there, you'll see that the silver value at the time in constant dollars, and this chart was done over a decade ago, but still the idea is correct, was $400 an ounce per ounce, 1344. And then you go to the all-time high around 1465 or so, and the value of 1 ounce of silver was $1,477 per ounce, silver, not gold, silver. And then you drop down to around, I'm going to say 1620s or so, and it flattened out around $200 an ounce from around 1600 to, we'll say 1750. So 150 years, probably a little longer. Silver's value was just a touch under $200 an ounce for 150 years. And then it dropped down from that point down to about 17, I'm going to say 90, to around $80 an ounce, $70, $80 an ounce. And it lasted for almost 100 years. And then it was demonetized, as I keep saying, 1873, and you got these big discrepancies. It did hit a 16-to-1 ratio during the hunts. It got all the way up to where it was up here in the $70. Why is it 70? Because this is inflation adjusted. And then we got down to where Warren Buffett bought, and it was around the $5 nominal price. It was on an inflation adjusted basis, was the lowest price silver's ever been. And today, silver is pretty much at an inflation-adjusted basis, actually lower than that, believe it or not. So silver's power is money. Yes, it's the greatest technology metal that we know of currently. It conducts light better than any metal. It conducts heat better than any metal. It conducts electricity better than any metal. It's got some acoustic properties, bar none, but its power is money. It was far more valuable for thousands and thousands of years as money alone. And once it became a technology metal, and demonetized, its value was not what it once was, as I obviously have shown. This shows central bank holdings. You see that from the year 2000 to the financial crisis of 2008, the central banks were basically just hoarding gold. And then after the financial crisis, they started to buy gold back. So central banks have been net gold purchasers. And here's, I think, one of the most interesting charts on this whole presentation. And this shows you, and remember, the title was, What If Silver Were Treated Like Gold? So central bank holding of gold and silver. So gold holdings, and slide was made a few months ago, so it was when gold was, around 1400, I believe. But the numbers are pretty much the same even today. So central bank holding of gold is $1.68 trillion. And central bank holding of silver is $1.6 billion. Remember, 1,000,000 is a million, 1,000 million is a billion, and 1,000 billion is a trillion. So to get from 1.6 billion to 1.6 trillion, you got to multiply it by 1,000, which means you'd have to take that 8, 9 and put 3 more zeros on it. But that's more than all the silver that's ever been mined on the planet from time immemorial. So you can't do it that way. Can you multiply the value of silver by 1,000 times to get it to equal the paper price where it would be on par with gold? And I suppose the answer you could. But my point isn't to do that. My point is to show you that if silver were treated as a monetary asset and it was used to balance the scale, so to speak, of honest money, where you couldn't have a gold-only standard and have the free-for-all to print as much money as you want until the system fails, and then you're holding the gold at the end of the day, and you still have the monetary asset that's most valued without silver ever playing its proper role as a balance or a guard or a assurance for the people that we have an honest monetary system, not just a gold-only standard, you would have a different situation altogether. Again, the number can't be refuted. It's 1,000 times greater. So I'll leave with this. I've got, I know, some questions coming up. This came from Robert Hill from the Federal Reserve back in the long ago in the 30s. But if all bank loans are paid, no one would have a bank deposit and there would be not $1 of coin or currency in circulation. This is a staggering thought. We're completely dependent on the commercial banks. Someone has to borrow every dollar we have in circulation, cash or credit. If the banks were to create ample synthetic money, we are prosperous. If not, we starve. We are absolutely without a permanent monetary system. When one gets a complete grasp of the picture, the tragic absurdity of our hopeless position is almost incredible, but there it is. It is the most important subject intelligent persons can investigate and reflect upon. It is so important that our present civilization may collapse unless it becomes widely understood and the defects remedied very soon. So I just want to put this up. Gandhi's one of my big heroes. Never met the man. I've watched a couple movies, read a little bit, but it's health that is real wealth and not pieces of gold and silver. I agree. If you got a pile of gold and don't have any health, you really haven't got much. That's what the front page of the Morgan Report looks like. That is the book. And these are other slides. So that's where I encourage you to go to sign up for our free newsletter. I have a paid service. But I also have this free one, just a first name and an email. We'll do it. And at that point, I'll turn it back over, Rena, to you if you've got some questions.
Yeah, I do have some questions for you. Earlier on in the presentation, Michael asked, what about California housing requiring more silver and effect on silver really affect silver price?
No, it will have some effect. But going all solar in California, right now, we're using about 100 million ounces of silver on an annual basis for solar. It dropped last year by about 10 million ounces. And it could have some impact, but not significantly. If you expand that, you said, was it Michael? If you went to everybody on the planet has to put up solar panels, there's not enough silver. So that would definitely have an impact. It'll have some, but not measurable in my view.
Got it. And Rita asked, when will silver start moving north? What is the catalyst?
Well, the catalyst is monetary demand. And that's why I lecture so hard. And I try to educate people that really silver is the money that's the most coveted throughout history. But certainly it's been dissed in the late 1800s, as I keep emphasizing. But, you know, there's a program that I'm affiliated with called LODE. It's ag.lode.one, ag for silver, LODE.one, which is the new modern silver money based on the blockchain. So you might want to check that out later. As far as technically, I can tell you pretty accurately, once we get above about 1850, which I know is a far cry from where we are right now, but silver's already been to almost 50 once in 2011. And I'm almost certain we'll get back there at least, if not much higher. So we really need to build a base, which we've been doing a long time. And once we get above about the 1850, 19 mark, somewhere in that range, we'll see a lot more movement in the silver market. As I've said before and was proven correct, and I'll say it again, there'll be a far more silver purchased above $30 an ounce than below $30 an ounce, unfortunately. I should say, there'll be more silver purchased above $30 an ounce by the retail public than bought by the retail public below 30. There are people now that are buying silver at these levels that are similar to what Sherwood Warren Buffett bought, you've got your big billionaire class that are actually moving to the silver market very slowly and very carefully because they see the potential in it. But they buy a little at a time and a little at a time and a little at a time. That's to not move the market and to be able to accumulate as much as they can at low prices. And once they've accumulated what they want, then comes the markup and the explosion into much higher prices.
Thanks, David. We have time for a couple more. So here's the next one. Some say the gold silver ratio is permanently broken. Will it go back to long-term mean?
Well, they usually do. And it could be permanently broken. I mean, I'm objective enough to say that. I don't know is a real answer. I think it's going to come back because of the digitalization of silver that I just outlined. The program I'm associated with isn't the only silver-backed crypto, and there's gold-backed cryptos, but I think there'll be a resurgence into the new millennium, which will be basically asset-backed money on private blockchains. And I don't know if it'll enter the system in government money or not, although I believe gold certainly could enter it. I've showed you how much the central banks own. But the real caveat here, which is interesting to my thinking, is that central banks own half the gold out there in the world, and the other half's owned more or less by the people. Whereas silver, the central banks own practically none. 1.6 billion is nothing in the world of finance, nothing. It's 0.01% of all financial assets. So the people actually have the power. People knew it and understood it back when I met with Max Kaiser and he came up with the idea of buy silver, take down JP Morgan. He wasn't wrong. It's just we didn't get enough people to do it. So it's the same system here where if you monetize silver by the people, of the people, for the people, by the people, and they bought silver, they wouldn't have to buy very much because there's not much left to actually overtake it on a monetary basis. And then you start to get close to the ratio where it actually exists. It's possible it could go to a 10-to-1 ratio if and only if it was used in a monetary sense as far as what people bought it for. Now, palladium is kind of showing you what silver could do, but it just takes that demand. You need people to wake up and buy silver as a monetary or a saving. And people buy palladium not because it's money, but because it's rare and the price is going up. Same thing will probably take place in the silver market.
Awesome. We have time for a couple more. Do you suggest buying hard silver or SLV?
Hard silver first. If you have real metal that you can touch, then after that, if you want to go into the ETFs, I really don't have a big problem with it. In fact, they're useful as a hedge device if you're so inclined. So.
And let's do one more. Do you have any opinion on rhodium?
Yeah, rhodium is something I wrote about in the Morgan Report a few months ago. I actually said it's time to sell it, and it was huge spreads in those exotic metals, but certainly could have made a lot of money in it. I don't think it's going back up. I think it's peaked.
Got it. And that looks like that's all we have time for today. Did you want to say anything else before we hop out of here?
Yeah, I'm on kind of a landing page. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but if you go over to the About, and you click that when you're actually on the live page, it'll bring you back to the About the Morgan Report. And there's a film there called The Four Horsemen, and you can watch that for free. You don't have to watch it on your computer screen. You can just get the URL and send it to your phone and watch it on your phone, your iPad, or on your TV set, or however you want to do it. But it's free. It's an hour and a half long. And it's really a good film about the current economic system that we're in and what the problems are and the solutions that we might want to incorporate to make it a better place for everybody.
Great. And just so everyone knows, you are in David's virtual booth right now. So all you need to do is scroll up and there is a link to themorganreport.com where you can find all of this information. And David, there's lots of thanks and in the comments directed to you. So I just want to let you know that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
And to everyone watching, if you missed this session or any of the other sessions and would like to watch a replay, you can do so by visiting thevirtualpass.moneyshow.com. This pass includes video and audio recordings of over 30 hours of timely presentations from Money Show's virtual event, plus info-packed slide presentations from our speakers, so you can review key points at your leisure. Thank you so much for being here, David, and everybody have a wonderful day. Oh, he hopped out fast.